about that roll in? I love that. I love that. Well, good morning, Church of the Springs. My name is Hal Mayer, and I hope you're having a good morning. You ready for tomorrow? What's tomorrow? Let me think. Labor Day. Oh, yeah. We're doing nothing, right? Well, I want to say thanks to Pastor Ron for the opportunity to preach here this weekend about a topic that's not only close to my heart, but everybody's in the room. Raising adults. I mean, the whole process from the baby to capable adults, right? And so if you missed any of the last 3 weeks, Pastor Ron's been talking about this topic. Go back and listen. He's got some great handles there. In fact, if you haven't heard last week, you want to go catch that. Well, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm in a deep sleep and I get the elbow. And I'm awake and Sandy says, it's time. So we grab the go bag and we're in a small town, so we drive 45 minutes to the hospital. 20 hours later, Sandy gives birth to our son, Hal, healthy baby boy and doing well. So we're all excited. 2 days after that, though, it really came home to me. They handed me this little human, right? I mean, tiny. And I'm thinking, you can't trust me with this. I've never done this before. I mean, I've had dogs, but we keep them outside. Aren't I supposed to bring this kid inside? I mean, isn't that the deal? So I started out the way most parents do. We're wondering, I'm clueless. I don't know what to do. The truth is, nobody's a perfect parent. Have you discovered that? You know you're not. But what I want you to know is nobody is. And I thought to make it interesting, I'd go into the kids area last weekend and get some video of your kids. And I'd ask them questions like, what's your daddy say when you spill milk? Oh, yeah. And what's your mama yell about? But I didn't do that. Pastor Ron wouldn't let me. So you're pretty happy about that, aren't you? So I thought I'd share a couple of my parenting fails. Would that be all right? Yeah, I thought it might be. Well, I get home from work, and there in the hallway is my 4-year-old son, Hal, crayons in his hands, crayons on the wall. I go, son, and I begin to lecture him, right? Because lectures work so good with kids. If you haven't tried it, it's wonderful. You can't do this. We don't own this place. You got to respect. All of that, said, pick them up and put them in your room. And I thought, I fixed that. That's pretty simple. Yeah. 2 weeks later, I come in. There he is sitting in the hallway, crayons in his hand, crayons on the wall. And I go, I'm going to have to fix this. So I walk over. I said, look what you did again. Really? But Dad? No, but Dad, we're not playing that. Swatted the 4-year-old boy on the back end and sent him to his room and told him to clean up the crayons. Well, he cries really loud. And I'm thinking, come on, you a little diva or something? I mean, I only swatted you once and it wasn't that hard. Well, while he's throwing his fit crying, Sandy comes in the apartment and says, what did you do? That should have been a clue. I should have caught it then. And I said, I fixed it. It's a proud dad moment for me. Our son coloring on the wall again. I gave him a swat. I think it's fixed this time. She kind of smiled. She said, well, actually what happened was Billy was up here and he started coloring on the wall. Hal came and told me. And so I just took Billy home. Congratulations, you just spanked the wrong 4-year-old. Oh, don't give him an O. Please, it wasn't that hard. Give me a break. Have you all ever apologized to a 4-year-old? I have. Yeah, that's kind of what you do when you make the mistake. Well, then, not only do we make mistakes, but our kids make mistakes. And if we're not careful, we own their mistakes. And here's an interesting one. My son's in high school playing basketball. This will make you take your O back. And the game's going, close game. Ball shot, hits off the rim. He goes up for the rebound. Another guy goes up from the other team. They're fighting over the ball. Physical contacts made. Referee blows the whistle. Everybody in the gym's quiet. And he points at Hal and said, number 24, foul on you. Hal, in the loudest voice, says, no blanking way, ref. At which point the ref tees him up. The coach pulls him out, and Sandy turns to me and says, "Your son? Why is he mine suddenly?" Didn't spank him hard enough when he was 4. That's what happened. I knew I messed up. So I said, I said, "Baby, you sure everybody heard him?" 3 rows up, a guy said, "Pastor, everybody in the gym heard him." Sandy said, "What are you going to do?" So I walked over to the bench, grabbed him by the nape of his neck, took him out to the truck, and took him home. Actually, I didn't do that. I let it ride. When the game was over, Sandy headed home. I said, "I'll ride home with Hal." And we met in the gym afterwards, and we're talking, and he's embarrassed. He's a Christian, had been trying to witness to his team, and he said, "Dad, I had to apologize to everybody on the team and the coach." That's the third stage of parenting, though. You didn't see me jump in and engage. I just listened, and we'll get to that in a minute, but some of you parents need to hear this. We're responsible to our kids to make sure they hear about Jesus, but we're not responsible for their actions. I never owned his action. That's on him. He was the one that did that. See, every parent discovers this along the parenting journey too. The days are long, but the years are short. Been there? Yeah, if you've got older kids, you know that. If you've got younger kids, you'll soon understand that. So today I want to walk you through 4 different stages for parenting. And what I'm going to first do is walk through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 very quick, and then I'll come back and dive a little deeper into each step, all right? So stage 1 is discipline. It says babies to 5-year-olds. How many have a kid or grandkid in that space? Can I see your hands? Yeah, I'm glad you could raise them. I thought you might be tired from no sleep. During this stage, we're teaching kids boundaries. We're teaching them self-control, right? Stage 2 then is the training stage, and that's 6 to 11. How many have kids or grandkids there? Notice how quick they got their hands up. They had plenty of sleep. During this stage, we're helping our kids learn values. Things like respect for other people, right? Personal property and honesty. In fact, it was during the latter part of this stage, kids were about the 4th grade, we started doing our family meeting every morning before school, about 30 minutes before school, and we'd talk about what was happening that week and things we needed to catch up on. And then we'd also have a devotion at that time, talking about how to follow Christ and obey the Bible and all that. Just use the kids' devotional book. And we ran that all the way through high school because we wanted to get that time together. Stage 3, though, is the coaching stage. Now, this is age 13 to 17. How many have kids there? That's middle and high school and grandkids. Yeah. You guys are a prolific group. A lot of kids in here. This is one of the most challenging stages. You're still working on the discipline and training, but your style moves into that of a coach. And there's a specific style there. I'll elaborate on that in just a moment when we come back around. But the final stage we're all looking for is the friendship stage, right? 18 years old and up. How many there? All right. It's this stage where the relationships become equal. Equal. And what that means as a parent, we're not using money to manipulate. Or I'll watch your kids if you'll do this, right? Gifts, we're not manipulating, they're equals. This is the stage when family gets together, feels like friends hanging out. Kind of fun. We're laughing, we're cutting up. Here's a picture of our family on a recent vacation, family vacation. That's my son-in-law all the way on the left. First in is my daughter, Ashley. My son in the back, you can see the damage done from that 4-year-old SWAT. He grew a beard to hide, I don't know. His wife to his front left, that's me and Sandy, and then 5 grandkids down front. Early on, we set a goal for our parenting. We wanted to raise godly, 35-year-old parents. It just wasn't obedience we were after. I mean, you're bigger than they are. You can get obedience. If you can't get obedience, it's going to be terrible when you get to teenage years, okay? But it wasn't obedience. I wasn't looking for the class valedictorian or them to graduate college. That was not the goal. Some of us lower the bar and say, hey, listen, graduate from high school with no felonies. That would be great. No, it was help our kids find, follow, and love Jesus. See, when your goal's raising godly 35-year-old parents, it changes every stage that you go through. Now, as we dive deeper into these stages, I'll give you a Bible verse, I'll give you a key word, and I'm gonna give you one thing to try. Now, there's a lot of behaviors you wanna try during that time. In fact, you can reach back into Ron's messages and find some practices to bring into here. I'm just gonna share one with you. Stage one is the discipline stage. I mentioned that earlier. Hebrews chapter 12 says this, my dear child, don't shrug off God's discipline, but don't be crushed by it either. It's the child he what? Loves that he disciplines. The child he embraces, he also corrects. Because God loves us, he disciplines us. Discipline equals love. So as you begin your journey into parenting, we learn from our Heavenly Father principles, right? That of discipline and that of love. In fact, that's the two vital behaviors I would say encompass all of our parenting, is love and discipline. Your kids need to know they are unconditionally loved. And they also need to know there is discipline. There are rules that we follow. Both those together will make your kids strong and healthy and functioning well, right? Here's the key word, predictable. Predictable. You need to be predictable in how you respond. Kid drops a glass and breaks it. One time you fly off the handle, the next time you don't say anything. Kids start being not sure. What are they gonna do? Kind of watching for a SWAT, kind of looking around. They need consistency. They need predictable behavior. In fact, the one thing is consistency in our discipline. Now, I understand in this first stage, it's really about survival, right? We all want to get through it with enough sleep that we're not sleep deprived the rest of our life. And if you've got littles under 5, you got to keep it simple. You can't create these massive structures of rules. And so what we created was some rhythms that we were real consistent with. Bedtimes, same time every night. We didn't negotiate that. My kids, there was going to be a no-win situation there. It was bedtime. Getting up in the morning, we'd wake them up, but midway through elementary school, we got them an alarm clock. Let them wake themselves up. Learn some behaviors like that. Consequences for behavior that's both good and bad. But the biggest thing for us that helped us the most, my wife would agree, is church engagement. Now, I was on staff at a church, but when your kids engage and they meet other adults who are loving Jesus, it changes them. The Springs here, we want to partner with parents by creating environments where your kids can not only hear the truth of the Bible, but they can also see it modeled, right? One of the best gifts you give your kids is living out an authentic Christian life. And one of the things we do know, parents that are inconsistent in their walk with Christ will produce kids that are inconsistent in their walk with Christ. So during the discipline stage, we're gonna have some other guidelines like, hey, stay out of the street. It won't go far well with you if you're running in the street. Don't put a fork into the electrical socket. I always wanted to let them do that. Is that wrong? They'd only do it once. I didn't. No throwing food. You're not gonna do that at dinner. We're gonna eat normal. You're gonna chew with your mouth shut. All that simple stuff, trying to keep them safe. When your kids, though, push through the boundaries, and they will, they need to experience consistent, predictable consequences. And here's the thing you don't want to do. You don't want to become the consequence. What do I mean by that? When you yell at your kid or lecture your kid, you're the consequence. Don't do that. Stop it. Instead, let them experience consequences. Your kid, breaks something. That's going to happen as a kid, right? I'm not going to spank them for that. I let them clean it up. And what I'll bet is they won't get it right the first time. I'll do it again. I'm good with that. Hey, we'll do it 4 or 5 times. Soon they'll learn. You know what? I guess I ought to do it right the first time. When they clean their rooms, heard people say, well, they don't do a good enough job, so I go in and fix it. Oh, not me. My goal was to do less. I'd go in there and say, try again. Oh, no, I believe in you. You can do this. And you know what? They started figuring it out because they'll play us like a fine fiddle. Stage 2, training. Training stage. The Apostle Paul challenges all parents. He says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. And that's the idea of yelling or demeaning or using names on your kids that are negative. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. So he's not saying don't engage it, but use God's style of discipline. See, discipline is still in our toolbox as we move into the training stage because we want to teach them skills that'll help them become successful adults. And here's the key word, guiding at this point. Guiding them, not bullying them. Think of yourself more as a guide than a policeman who's walking around enforcing the rules. You're going to spend more time here explaining the why because they need to learn to think long term. You practice this behavior. Here's what it looks like in 5 years. If you treat people this way, here's what it looks like as you get down the road. That's the consequences and helping them learn to think long term. The one thing, teach them how to disagree with you and win. You're thinking, what do you mean? I remember riding in a car with a pastor friend of mine and he said, Hal, you got young kids and you're huge. I'm only 6'5", come on, man. But he said, you need to teach your kids how to disagree with you and win. Otherwise, they're going to go through life hiding from this. So I came up with what I call the 3 A's. The first one is attitude. In fact, these 3 A's will work in your marriage. They'll work at the job site. They'll work with your friends, family. And they were especially good helping my kids understand what it would look like if they wanted to disagree with me, which I did want them to. First one is attitude, the A, attitude. Here's what that means. If you yell at me or get snippy or talk down, you lose. We're not talking anymore. You don't get a chance to fix it, you're done. Next time, I bet you get it better. Second thing is audience. That's you and me. You got a disagreement with me, come to me one-on-one. Because if you come at me in a group, it's not going to land well, I promise. You will not win. And the third thing, which is vital, alternatives. Attitude, audience, and alternatives. Alternatives is this. It helps them think solutions rather than problems. So if you've don't like what I'm doing, that's fine. I encourage that. But you must come with your plan. Because if you don't have a plan, I like mine better, right? So they need to learn how to disagree with the teacher without mom or dad being there. They need to learn how to disagree with the coach or the boss at work. So my daughter Ashley learned this. She's going into the 6th grade and saw her math book for the 6th grade and it was basic math and she wanted a harder class. By the way, you can tell she's my wife's daughter and not mine. I never wanted a harder class. I always opted for the easier one. But she goes in meets with the vice principal without Sandy and I knowing it. Yay. Goes in and sits down with him and says, hey, listen, I want to take the advanced class. The one I'm in right now is not challenging, and I've looked at the book. I know what they're going to be teaching. And the guy said, well, Ashley, you don't have the prerequisites for that. We don't want you to flunk. And she said, got it. How about this? I take the class, and if I flunk, it's on me. Attitude, audience, and alternatives. She took the class, and because she's a strong-willed person, like her mother, she got an A. By the way, the 3 A's can be used anywhere. I mentioned that. To have life-giving disagreements. If you've got 2 people and there's no disagreement, somebody gave up or somebody's dead. Let's teach our kids and our spouses and our friends and our family how to have life-giving disagreements. Attitude, audience, alternatives. In the training stage, they're going to need truth and grace. Now, Ron mentioned that last week in his message. It comes from John 1:14. It's talking about Jesus. He says, we have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and what? Truth. If it's all grace when you're dealing with your kids, it becomes permissive and it's wheels off. If it's all truth, it becomes legalism and nothing but a bunch of rules. As we practice grace and truth, though, it kind of gives our kids a window into how God responds to them, right? So as parents, let's bring the truth to the forefront with our kids to guide them, and grace to catch them when they fall, because we want to let them fall and experience those consequences. Our next stage, and probably the most challenging stage, is the coaching stage. That's teenagers, right? Now, if you're thinking of a coach, I'm talking different. Go back to the 16th century. Not a coach like this. A coach more like this. See, back then, a coach was used to take a valued person from where they were to where they wanted to go. Not everybody got to ride in a coach. This is a ninja parenting move when you move in the coaching stage. Here's what switches. You're now trying to dig into them and discover what it is they want to do, and then give them opportunities and help them become successful at testing it. As a coach, you want to help them move from where they are to where they want to go. It's no longer what you want, mom and dad. It's no longer the school you want, the degree you want, or all of that. They're now growing up, and you want to help them make choices, right? And they get a chance to own those. No more lawnmower parenting at this stage. Have you heard of that? You know what helicopter parenting is, right? It's where they hover over and they watch and make sure everything's okay. Well, the lawnmower parent is the one who goes in front of their kids making sure the way's clear. Let them experience consequences. Let them have some problems while they're at home, and you can help them, and they don't have to fail major league at a higher level. Proverbs 22 says this: train up, or I put the word coach in there, or coach a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart from it. See, great coaches help their players become the best. They're interested in their success. Here's a key word: trust. Trust. Now, we have to earn this. You're thinking, wait a minute, they should give me that. We have to earn their trust. It's going to be vital to move into the last stage of friendship, and that only happens with trust. So we're going to work hard to build their trust. Here's the one shift. We shift responsibility for their life to them. They get to experience the consequences of bad choices, of flunking a class. Do you know, early on with our kids in high school, middle school and high school, we helped them decide what they wanted to do, and then I stayed out of the way. If they didn't get a homework assignment, I was okay with that. I want them to learn from missing it, right? And experience I'm not going to remind them every night, because that wasn't going to happen when they got older. Slowly transitioning, coaching. So here's another thing we did. 10th grade, got both our kids' credit cards. Yay, $500 limit in my name. And then here was the deal I set up. You have to pay off that credit card every month. You're going to pay me. You're going to pay it off every month. If you don't, however, we're going to go biblical on you. The Bible says the borrower is servant to the lender, right? So you owe me, you're now my servant. What that means is whenever I want something done, maybe a chore I'll pay you for, but you're going to do it. They said, great, we love that. Things went great for a while. Then 1 month later, the kid who I probably should have spanked more doesn't pay it off. I said, okay, and I take care of it. I'm not going to lecture him. Why am I lecturing? I'm not going to be the consequence. However, on Saturday afternoon when the football game was on that he wanted to see, I said, you know what? I think I need my truck washed. Well, Dad, the game's on. I said, I know, and in a normal circumstance when you don't owe me money, we'll negotiate when you're going to do that. Remember that old? And he'd go, got it. That only happened once. Isn't that amazing? No lecture, no nothing, just a consequence. Side note though, if you're not a responsible credit card user, you probably shouldn't try the plan. Maybe in reverse, your kids could hold you accountable, I don't know. Here's why. My kids go to college, they will mail you credit cards like they're candy. And out in life, the average adult has $10,000, $9,000 worth of credit card debt. I want my kids to develop that muscle when the mistake's small. We can fix a $500 problem. $18,000, that's some work and some time. So Proverbs 22:6, looking back at that verse again, it says, train up, I said coach, a child in the way they should go. In the way they should go, that's the idea of the way they're bent, the way they're gifted. how they are psychologically, all that ties into there. And are y'all familiar with the ASVAB? It's a test they take in high school, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And it helps them understand maybe what path they ought to take by what they're good in. So my daughter Ashley took the test and it said she should be an accountant or an engineer. The challenge for her is she likes to talk. And if you're talking a lot and doing accounting, you make mistakes, right? But she tried it. One summer she kept the books for a guy and she was good at it, but she just didn't like it. Then she started wanting to explore physical therapy, which required the math aptitude and such as that. And I have a cousin who's a physical therapist up in Pennsylvania, and she went and shadowed her for a couple of weeks and said, that's what I want to do. Went to the University of Florida, graduated with a degree in PT. See, my role was to help her find her gifts and passion, not to determine her path. We got to take our hands off at that part. See, as a coach, remember this, we don't determine their direction. We do encourage their exploration, right? Not direction, but exploration. Stage 4, and this is the one we all want, the friendship stage. You want to make it here. This is 18 years old and up. They're adults, hopefully on their own, living somewhere else than your house. Jesus models this in John 15. He says this, I no longer call you slaves, he's talking to his disciples, because the master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends, since I've told you everything the Father told me. So Jesus' desire for you and I is to be his friends, is to be in relationship with him. Well, that's what I want for my kids. In fact, the key word is relationship here. Relationship, it's important. Now, I got something you got to write down. You haven't been taking notes. Write this on your arm or your neighbor's arm. I don't care. But you want to get this down. As they are adults, unsolicited advice is viewed as criticism. Unsolicited advice. But how they were doing this, I know I've got to do this. Sometimes Sandy puts her hands over my mouth too. Why? Because unsolicited advice is seen as criticism. It's going to cause a rift. Well, what if, let them experience it. Hopefully along the way they ask you again, but do not do that, because here's the one thing you got to remember. Sometimes you have to choose between being right and having a relationship. Choose the relationship. I don't care if you're right. You know what? They don't either. Anybody? If you're married, you know that. I'm right every time. Don't talk to my wife. But that doesn't matter. It's the relationship, right? Choose the relationship so you can be friends with your kids. And you get a chance then maybe to influence some grandkids. Every year on family vacation and holidays, we get together, we laugh, we play games. Are there problems sometimes? Oh, you bet. The 3 A's, attitude, audience, and alternatives. Now my son is 40 something, 1 or 2 or 3, I don't know. If he hears this, he'll be upset, I don't know, so hopefully he won't listen. He never did before, why would he listen now? I got him there. Cry baby. I now ask him for insight. I'll go hear him preach. I'll say, man, I could preach that. Would you send me those notes? He sends me the whole notes. I'll ask him credit. He'll send me more. And people say, how if you preach that? That's plagiarism. Is it? I mean, he's got my name. Half of my DNA. Is it really? I think not. I'll never give him credit for what I use from him, right? So I sent him this message. I said, give me some feedback. And he did. He said, hey, this is good. I would adjust this, and Dad cut this totally. And it wasn't a story about him. It won't work. And I listened to him. Why? We're friends now, and he's a better preacher than I am, so I like listening to him, and I'll take his insight every time I can get it. I'm just not going to tell you what the insight was. In the friendship stage, you enjoy hanging out with your kids. You get to play a lot of table games, and I'm grateful to God for that. For the last several years, after vacation, Sandy and I have sat around, or Christmas, we go, God gave us what we asked for. How cool is that? Godly 35-year-old parents. And it's fun to spend time with them following Jesus and know they're teaching our grandkids to follow Christ. Well, Sandy and I, realizing we were done with our first mission statement, decided we wanted to help bring the same thing about for our kids. So we wrote this book, The Poggy Chronicles. And it's stories, character stories in a devotional format for kids. And we did this because we wanted to make sure we passed this on. It's about legacy now, right? I didn't bring books with me to sell. If you want to buy it, you can go on Amazon. And you're saying, why Poggy? My granddaughter, she was our first. She took grandpa and put it backwards. Poggy. I don't know, it stuck and I like it. Nobody else is called Poggy. Well, here's the cool part. At my grandkids' request, the three oldest ones, I got to be a part of each of their baptisms. It doesn't get any better than that. See my grandkids find and follow Jesus and their parents lead them? I'm in. See, the dream we had, yeah, we worked hard, but thank God we had a church family that walked along with us and that encouraged my kids and trained my kids. Because we're now in that part of legacy, right? Let me say this. Friendship with your kids is a wonderful thing. There's another level of friendship, and it's with God. Listen to this verse again, John 15. Jesus said, I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends since I've told you everything the Father has told me. We have the opportunity to be friends with God. Grasp that. I started my relationship with Christ when I was 16 years old. And it's been one great journey of following him. Oh, it's not all roses, right? I mean, there's consequences along the way for bad steps I took, but his plan for me, it's worth following. I'd do it again and see my kids follow Jesus and see my grandkids follow Jesus. I'm done. Nothing else matters, right? So if you've never committed your life to Christ and you haven't become his friend, I'm going to lead us in prayer in a moment. Out loud, you can pray silently and start that relationship with Jesus Christ. Would you bow your heads with me, please? You can say this prayer silently to God as I pray it out loud. Lord Jesus, thank you for loving me. Thank you for dying for my sins. Right now, I ask you to forgive my sins. Would you come into my life and make me the kind of person you want me to be? I want to follow you, Jesus. Amen.